Caruso keeps rolling. All 10. A second chance opportunity. Hines Allen not there. But taking it away. Oh.
The call came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon in November, 6 months after Caitlin Clark had packed up her life in Iowa City and begun her professional journey with the Indiana Fever. And she was sitting alone in her Indianapolis flat reviewing game footage when her phone buzzed with an unfamiliar Iowa number and a voice that instantly unsettled her. Miss Clark, this is the Children's Hospital of Iowa. We have a 12-year-old patient who's listed you as his emergency contact under elder sister. For a moment, she simply stared at the wall, stunned by the impossibility of it. How could a child she'd never met claim her as family? Yet what she didn't know was that this boy had been carrying her photograph in his rucksack for 3 years, telling teachers, nurses, and anyone who would listen that Caitlin Clark was his sister, and that one day she would come back for him. The nurse's tone carried a quiet urgency that made Caitlin abandon her film session instantly. She grabbed her coat and keys and drove the 2 hours back to Iowa City, her mind a storm of confusion, fear, and a strange, unexplainable pull she couldn't ignore. The sun was dipping low when she stepped into the hospital, the pediatric ward smelling faintly of antiseptic, juice boxes, and the lingering sweetness of children's snacks. And when she approached the nurse's desk and introduced herself, the woman's expression softened with relief as she said, "Room 314, he's been asking for you for 3 days. We weren't sure you'd come." When Caitlin asked what was wrong, the nurse's answer made her stomach tighten. "Leukemia. He's been fighting it for 2 years. This is his 3rd relapse. He insisted we call you. Said you were his big sister and that you promised you'd always be there." The words pierced her. A promise she had no memory of but felt the gravity of all the same. And as she walked down the corridor, something in her chest whispered that this boy was precisely where she was meant to be. She opened the door and froze, breath caught painfully in her throat, at the sight of a frail boy lying beneath stark white sheets. His small frame swallowed by tubes and blankets, his dark eyes far too old for 12. His knit cap couldn't hide the absence of hair, but what truly stunned her was the wall beside his bed, plastered with photos of her, newspaper articles, fan posters, drawings, headlines, all arranged with the devotion of someone who had memorized her face. "Caitlin," he breathed, joy bursting through his exhaustion. "You came. I knew you'd come." She moved to his side instinctively, taking his tiny, warm, paper-thin hand into her own, her voice barely steady as she whispered hello and gently asked how he knew her. His smile lit his entire face. "You don't remember me. That's okay. You saved my life that day, and I've been waiting for you to come back ever since." His grandmother, a silver-haired woman with the posture of someone who'd carried too many burdens alone, rose from her chair in the corner and introduced herself softly as Elena Rodriguez, explaining that she'd been raising Daniel since his parents died in a car crash when he was 4. When Caitlin admitted she couldn't remember ever meeting him, Elena's eyes glistened with memory as she told her it had been 3 years earlier at a hospital fundraiser, where Caitlin had taken time to sit with a terrified, newly diagnosed child who refused to speak to anyone. The recollection hit Caitlin with a jolt. She remembered the small boy in the corner, the hollow fear in his eyes, the way she had instinctively knelt beside him and stayed longer than she was scheduled to, telling him that it was okay to be scared, okay to be angry, but that fighters stick together. And she remembered writing on a small basketball, "To my little brother Daniel, keep fighting. Love, your big sister Caitlin." Daniel pointed weakly toward a shelf, and there it was, the worn basketball surrounded by get well cards, the ink faded but still legible. He told her he brought it every time he came for treatment, that it gave him strength, that he'd never once doubted she'd return when he truly needed her. And as Caitlin listened, overwhelmed, she felt not the weight of a burden, but the profound honor of a bond created in a moment she had forgotten, but he had built his entire courage upon. A reminder that sometimes the smallest kindness becomes someone else's lifeline, and that chosen family can be born in the unlikeliest moments when one heart recognizes another's need.
And she said, most importantly, continue to have fun.
Yep, want to have fun, but they always have the goal of going out and trying to win, as Howard with the finish on the left side.
Caitlin took a slow breath as she sat on the edge of Daniel's bed, the soft glow of the hospital monitors casting pale light across his fragile face. and she squeezed his hand gently before whispering, "Daniel, I need you to know something. I meant what I said that day. I meant every word, and I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere until we figure this out together." Over the next hour, while Daniel drifted in and out of shallow sleep, Elena told Caitlin the entire story. How the boy had carried Caitlin's photo in his backpack every single day for 3 years like a talisman against fear. How he'd watched every Iowa game from hospital beds and treatment rooms, cheering loudly even when his body was too weak to sit upright. How he'd written letters to Caitlin that he never posted, telling her about losing his hair, about the nights when he cried from the pain, and about the afternoons when he imagined himself strong enough to play basketball again. When Elena's voice dropped to a whisper and she explained that the doctors believed this was his last real chance, that the relapse was severe and the treatment was failing, Caitlin felt something inside her shift with fierce clarity. Every instinct told her that stepping back was not an option. A clinical trial in Memphis could save his life, but the cost was overwhelming: travel, accommodation, weeks of specialized care, and Elena's voice trembled as she admitted they simply couldn't afford it. Caitlin straightened, her eyes steady, and said firmly, "No, you're not telling him this option is impossible. You're telling him that his big sister will make sure he gets every chance he deserves." And that night, with the same determined intensity she once reserved for championship games, she made phone call after phone call, her agent, her financial advisor, the Caitlin Clark Foundation, until a plan took shape. When she returned the next morning, laptop under her arm, Daniel was awake, pale but hopeful, and she set the computer on his bedside table. "Remember how I told you fighters stick together?" she said softly. "Well, I realized something. There are children like you all over the country, fighting battles far tougher than anything I've faced on the court." Then she turned the screen, revealing a new initiative. Team 22 Caitlin Clark's Champions, a program through her foundation designed to support seriously ill children and their families. "You're going to be our first champion," she told him, her voice thick with emotion. "Not because you need help, but because you've shown me what real courage looks like." Daniel stared in disbelief. "You're really going to help me go to Memphis?" he whispered. "I'm going to do more than that," Caitlin replied. "I'm going to make sure you have everything you need to win this fight. And when you're better, you're going to help me find other kids who need someone in their corner." Elena cried quietly as she tried to protest, but Caitlin shook her head. "You can accept it because this is what family does. Daniel made me part of this family 3 years ago." For the next 2 weeks, she prepared for Daniel's treatment as